I'm going to start out today with this clip from Bedros Keuilian. If you've never heard of Bedros, I'm not really sure if you've been living under a rock or what. And before I start this clip, I want to give him a huge shout out today. He's one of the very few men that I follow consistently. His messages always give me something to think about. Like I said, he's one of the few men that I follow. And the reason why this is he is completely genuine in everything that he does. But I also believe that everything that he does is completely aimed at making better men in society. So if you don't currently follow him, Bedros Keuilian, I want you to pause this podcast right now, and I want you to go out there and subscribe to his channel. Whether it's YouTube, Instagram, whatever. Go follow him and listen to his messages. I guarantee you that he is going to add value to your life.
Henry David Thoreau said most men live lives of quiet desperation. And I like to add to that most men are also suffering in silence. And the reason for that is that they have a conscience. Your conscience is your inner voice, fellas. Your inner voice tells you the type of man you want to be. You think about the type of man you want to be. Maybe you want to be more fit. You want to lose fat. You want to start making more money. You want to show up as a better husband, a better father. You want to be a better leader, a better entrepreneur. Maybe you want to learn to do jujitsu and fight, yet you don't. And so your conscience is constantly gnawing away at you, just gnawing away at you with anxiety and depression. And that is why most men live lives of quiet desperation and suffer in silence, is because you are incongruent with your conscience. You are incongruent with the man that you want to be. So start becoming more congruent and evolve.
Welcome to the show. I am Steve Baumgartner, your host and founder. The mission of the Fire Forged Leader podcast is to serve the audience through leadership strategies on three primary battlefronts. Those battlefronts consist of the workplace, out in the community, and most importantly, with your family. Before we get started, make sure you hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss out on a single episode. And after you get done with this episode, I would appreciate some honest feedback along with a rating of this show. Now let's get to work.
Leaders are not born in a womb. They are forged through heat, pressure, and a whole lot of sweat. The Fire Forged Leader podcast serves the audience through exploring leadership at work, in the community, and with the family, using a practical perspective and real-life experiences from the host, Steve Baumgartner, and his guests in the Forge. Now, it's time to enter the Forge with the Fire Forged Leader.
Guys, I'm going to get a little bit raw today. I hope you don't mind. Over November and partway through December, I was dealing with some shit. Now this video from Bedros hit me right in the gut with this statement that men suffer in silence. I'm one of these men. I spent quite a few weeks churning thoughts in my head, ones that I don't even like to share. But I want to be vulnerable with you all today because I really believe that we need to start talking about this as men. I believe that for the first time since I've been clean, a couple of decades worth of years, that I was actually suffering from some low-grade depression and anxiety. To be honest with you, it could have even been longer than that. It could have been longer than just November and part of December. What I told you is just an estimate, and I was probably suffering for a bit before that and just didn't realize it until it got to a point where it really started to shake my world. Now, what I can tell you is that it's a hard damn spot to be in. And I am very blessed to have such a loving wife and great friends that I could lean on and that also help me and are still helping me to get back on track. So let's break down my experience just a little bit. I was feeling like a failure at work. Now let me refresh a little bit here. A little over a year and a half ago, I switched roles. I went from being in engineering and a high-ranking role in engineering, a corporate role, one where I was looked at as one of the people who had the answers. And to be at home with my wife and children more consistently, I decided to switch roles and I became a plant manager. It's one that stretches me a lot. It's one that I am not the guy who has every answer like I was before. It's been a very difficult transition for me, having to say, I don't know so much, but I'll find the answer. In addition to that, I had just come off this high of this Step Into the Fray series where I felt like I had a ton of purpose. And when that was done, yeah, I was still doing work, but I felt a small loss of purpose within that. And to go along with that, just kind of the cherry on top of that cake was there was also a plateau in the ratings of my show at that point in time. And on the outskirts, things that I don't talk about much with y'all is that really the purpose of this podcast was to set up the stage for my coaching business in leadership. And while I do a little bit of that today, it was meant to be my forever career, right? Something that at some point in time I could leave my W-2 and go in full time on this coaching career. And I started having these feelings because I haven't made a lot of traction in that arena. I had these feelings of, yeah, I'm never going to make it. How am I going to come up with the time to devote to this practice when I can't even hardly get customers? I was feeling like it was hopeless. And because of all these feelings, it affected my home life as well. It affected my ability to be a husband, my ability as a father, things that I hold sacred. And then I got a wake-up call. And this was pretty brutally honest in this wake-up call. But just to set the stage, I am involved in a men's movement, a men's group. And I talk to many men multiple times every week. And, while my wife had noticed, I had one of those men speak to me man to man, which was really a huge wake-up call for me. So this one man spoke up. He called me out, and really I'm going to paraphrase this. This is not a direct quote, but this is what I took away from this conversation. Steve, you have a life that many men can only dream of having. Why the hell are you bitching so much about it? Why don't you show a bit of gratitude for what you do have? And with that spark, the other men started to feed into me as well. We discussed a lot of different points that really just opened my eyes to help me see that the thoughts inside of my head were not the thoughts that I should be feeding and nurturing. This really got me to thinking that there's something wrong with the way that I was thinking. And it's really the first time that I realized that I wasn't in my normal state of mind. And I didn't like it. It was very uncomfortable to find myself in this position. But with this newfound recognition, this recognition that I wasn't feeling like I thought I should be feeling, I went on a hunt to find answers. And I'm probably wired a little bit differently than people in that because I've experienced this a couple times in my life. So I'm really hoping that the things that I'm going to say next will resonate with some people so that they can go out and find the things that they need to help them get past this point that I was in. But the thing that I found after I went on this hunt is really what I want to share with you today. And that thing is what they call cognitive-based therapy, CBT for short. And don't get it confused with all of the, the weed talk and everything else. This is cognitive-based therapy. All right, so a couple of things. You're probably thinking, whoo, this sounds expensive. Therapy? Whoo, whoo. Ooh, I can't spend any funds. Well, the way that I did it, it's not expensive, okay? It cost me $80. The next thought that's probably going through your minds as men is, ooh, therapy, no, we can't do no therapy. Therapy's a bad word. My dad told me that in the 80s. Come on now. Calm down, fellas. It's not that bad. I get really skittish when it comes to the word therapy too. I'm a Gen X kid. I get it. But it's not that bad. And it's going to help you. It's going to help you grow and become more. And who doesn't want that? All right, so what is this cognitive-based therapy, the CBT thing? All right, the textbooks say it's a form of psychotherapy that focuses on addressing and modifying dysfunctional thought patterns, beliefs, and behaviors. All right, so let me break that down. It's a form of therapy, screw that psychotherapy word, but it's a form of therapy that addresses dysfunctional thoughts, patterns, beliefs, and behaviors. All right, so we're going to correct through this therapy the things that are negative with our thoughts, patterns, beliefs, and behaviors. Here we go. It is a goal-oriented and practical therapeutical approach that helps individuals understand the connection between their thoughts, feelings, actions, and empowers them to make positive changes in their life. All right, so a couple things that get me pretty excited about that. Goal-oriented, practical, driving connections, understanding connections between thoughts, feelings, actions, and then finally, empowerment. It empowers them to make positive changes in their life. All right? So really what this does is it helps you identify and empowers you to change, right? Now, last but not least, I want to tell you that in my research of CBT, I ran across all things that have a lot of data, right? And this treatment is proven to work for a variety of conditions such as PTSD, anxiety, depression, and even some phobias, all right? So now stop and think about the men in your life, right? The men in your lives. I know everybody listening to this right now probably knows a man with PTSD. They probably know someone who's got a negative outlook on life. They probably know people who are scared of some things, right? It's normal. You can be in one of those groups too. It's okay. Now, I do want to throw a disclaimer in here because, like I stated, I believe I was dealing with a low-grade depression and anxiety. All right? It's very new for me. Before I got clean, I felt depression and anxiety a lot more than sits. But I think it's been laying dormant and finally came out to bite me. But what I want to focus on is I believe mine was low grade. Okay? So with that being said, there's a variety of apps out there that you can do daily exercises to move through the steps that I'm going to go through here in a minute. However, and I'm going to stress this, if you have more severe symptoms than what I had, if your outlook is that gloom and doom, and I don't know what that level is, but I think you do. If you think you need professional help, go find the professional help and work through these things. All right, so with this app that I've been using, and I'm not going to promote any apps today. If you want to, get a hold of me and I'll tell you the one that I'm using. However, the steps in CBT are not drastically different from one thing to another. It's simply this. We need to identify daily, we need to identify our mood and our feelings. Now, for the mood, for me, this is a simple 5-point scale that I use in the app. And it goes from terrible to joyous. All right? And it's simply smiley faces. It doesn't have to be difficult. Then you dive into that a little bit more. So if you're on the positive side of that, we need to start identifying the internal feelings that are positive, such as calm, peaceful, fulfilled, different things like that. If it's on the negative side of that, we also need to identify those negative feelings. Anxious, dissatisfied, angry, whatever those are, sad. All right? Now, men, stay with me here. Feelings are icky. I get it. Feelings are something that we don't want to talk about. I get it. But I need you to stick with me because this can do you some good. They can help you be more successful if you learn how to work with your feelings. Retrain your brain into getting the right thought patterns. So the next step in this is we are going to analyze those thoughts and feelings. All right? So that's why I need you to stick with me. What is getting you to feel a certain way? For example, what are some of the negative thoughts that you have that led to a certain emotion? What are the positive thoughts that led to positive emotions? So here's an example. Let's just say that my boss just told me that he didn't agree with a certain part of a project that I was working on. And as my brain gets churning on that, right, I start thinking a lot of things. And I start to feel anxious because I believe that if this fails now, he's going to fire me, right? How quickly does this happen in some of our brains, right? Where someone just voices an opinion about something, and then we start to really make it something bigger than what it was. My daughter's like that. She somehow finds the worst part of, I shouldn't say the worst part. She sits here and connects things and makes them bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger until everything just sucks. And this is something that I want to work with her on as well. But anyways, getting back to it. Now, what I just talked about was a distorted thought. All right, so the next thing that we need to do is we need to identify the distortion within that thought. Distortions are these things that our minds do that play tricks on us. It's as simple as that. There's nothing wrong with us. It's a fight or flight type mechanism within our brain. So, in my example, I catastrophized. Hopefully that's worked. But basically it's catastrophizing, where I am thinking the worst thing because of one negative comment that was made, right? My boss made this negative comment and I just brought it into this catastrophe environment because my brain started connecting all these dots to this worst case scenario. So now what I got to do, now that I know what that distortion is, I need to reframe that distortion. I need to challenge that thought. So a couple questions I could ask myself when I do this is, how many other projects have you done that were successful, moron? Sorry, that was probably a bad thing to say during the middle of this, right? But how many other projects have you done that you have been successful on? How many times have you received compliments in the past for how well you have done on projects? Or anything else, right? And what I want you to do is I want you to journal all these things, okay? I want you to journal your mood. I want you to journal the emotions that go with the mood. I want you to journal the distortion and reframing that distortion. And I want you to just write all that stuff down because this is going to be important, right? So when we journal these things, and then we rinse and repeat this process over and over and over, day after day, what you're going to find is that you're going to have a lot of times where these distortions are going to be the same things time after time. You're going to find amazing trends within these journal entries. And through these trends, what I found in my life is that, like what Bedros was talking about, I really was not congruent. And where I wasn't was between my dreams, my reality, and what I'm willing to sacrifice to get to my dreams. I was driving so hard at some things that didn't matter that I couldn't even appreciate what I had. And I certainly wasn't living in the moment. Being with my kids, being with my wife during this time period like I should have been. And through all of this, it was actually driving me away from my value-based vision, where my soul and my mind were in constant battle. And that led to that bad spot of that low-grade depression and anxiety that I was in. And it was a bad spot to be in. I don't like feeling that way. I don't ever want to feel that way again. And guys, I am sure that I'm not the only one here that has ever questioned my value in life, work, or at home. I'm sure that I'm not the only man on here that has felt depression or anxiety. And I'm also guessing that it's far more common than what we even want to give credence to. The statistics for men tell the story. Men are over 79.6%. That's almost 80%, guys, of the suicide rate in the world. Let me state that again. Men are over 79, almost 80% of the suicide rate in the world. Guys, stop suffering in silence. We need to stop looking at therapy as a bad thing. We need to lean on our tribe. We need to trust our wives with our emotions. And we need to invest in ourselves. Once again, you have come here to listen to this message. But listening is not enough. I need to know what you are going to take from this message and apply this week, this month, and this year. And remember, when you become a better leader, you become a better spouse, a better parent, a better coworker, and ultimately that person that other people want to follow. But it starts with your own mental health. So let's go out there and grow in your leadership skills for your family, for your community, and for the ones you lead at work. Go out there and lead with intent, my friends.
You have just experienced the heat and pressure of the forge. Remember, words without action are meaningless. Now, after the heat of the forge, shape your thoughts, quench your brain, then put your new tools to use, adding to your leadership. Tune in next week for more lessons from the forge.